Hi, I'm John Meidinger, and I'm here to talk about a power source that's been recently under quite a bit of scrutiny. Of course, I'm talking about nuclear power, and it's something that I thought would be very useful to do a topic on, so I did some research on it. And I found that it's very useful, though it does have some drawbacks. Nuclear power is just a great, immense power, and it's made out of relatively small amounts of fuel. It's an electric or motive power that's generated by a nuclear reactor, and it was credited to being founded by a man, Roentgen, when he discovered X-rays in 1895. He really didn't discover nuclear power, but he discovered what was then made into research, which eventually led to nuclear power. He prophesied that nuclear power could be the power of the future, and I think so too. It's very expensive. I'm not very experienced in this topic as I am pretty young, but I did enough research on the topic and think I can inform you enough about this topic, maybe for you to do some research on it. Someday, I think that nuclear power will be all over the United States, as it's already starting to and has created many jobs for the United States. Nuclear power is the end of the future, even though it has drawbacks. There's two types of nuclear power. There's fission, where you split the atoms up, and then there's fusion, where you combine the atoms together. Fission is created by splitting atoms, which releases a huge amount of power. This is, per se, like if you have an uneven amount of atoms and you hit it with another atom, it's going to become even, and then it's going to want to split off. So that's where all that power comes from. The most common element used for this practice is uranium, and according to Robert Lamb, it is the most common element in nuclear fission is uranium because of how unstable it is. It has an odd number, so they throw one more particle at it to make it an even number. This is because the unstable isotope, and when you throw a free neutron on it, it violently spins and creates a lot of energy. Nuclear power is kind of hard to harness because of this, though. It's also why it's used in nuclear weapons because of its very, very strong power. When it splits off, it gives off immense amounts of radiation, which are very harmful, whether you're close to it or not. Power plant grade uranium only contains about 2 to 3% of the unstable kind of uranium, while the ones that's used in nuclear weapons contains about 90%. The other kind of power plant is called fusion, and this one's very experimental. It's when you use two or more atoms collide together to form one new nuclei, which is the center of the atom. And when you do this, it creates a vast amount of power while taking away two atoms and turning them into one. It's still very experimental, as you have to heat a hydrogen atom up to 100 million degrees Celsius. And it must be dense and stay at this heat long enough for it to fuse. According to World Nuclear Association, the aim of controlled fusion research program is to achieve ignition, which occurs when enough fusion reacts take place for a process becoming self-sustaining, with fresh fuel then being added to continue it. With our technology we currently have, we cannot heat something up for that long. We can't even imagine to get that close. But once this extreme heat is achieved for the desired length, it creates vast amounts of heat and power. Our sun currently uses nuclear fission right now, and that's where it supplies its heat. It has hydrogen atoms that burn up, and that's its fuel, and then it turns into what we get as radiation and heat on Earth. Though it could be the strongest power source that we could ever have, we are still not close enough to making it a realization. In summary, we learned about two nuclear power types: fusion, combining the atoms, and fission, splitting the atoms. Remember, fusion is still highly experimental in cases of power plants, but can create lots of power, so I think it's worth researching into. Fission is splitting atoms, and it also creates vast amounts of power, but has very bad repercussions on the environment. There would be an example, I would say Fukushima in 2011 in Japan. There was a tsunami that hit the coast, and then right after an earthquake, and that cut open the walls of the nuclear reactor, which made it leak radiation. Still, people cannot live there, and probably won't be able to live there for another 60 or 70 years. However, these repercussions, though, I do believe that nuclear power is great, and with better safety procedures and increasing wants for energy, I feel that nuclear power has to be the way of the future. It's already used in the United States, but I think it's going to be used more, almost more than fossil fuels, and it's a lot cleaner than fossil fuels, might I add. And with the more interest that people are putting into this subject, I think that I should inform you guys about how, if we do this, we can inform others, and maybe someday we can find a way to make it safer for everybody.